Hey guys, today's official topic is political culture, participation, electoral systems, party systems, that type of thing, like participation. But I did just want to kind of throw this at you real quickly. Like, it's really hard to talk about political culture and participation within Nigeria without remembering their history. Again, you can go back and read that section of your text. And if you remember, if you were in class yesterday, I gave you that handout that has the next 3 slides on it. If you were not here, you can look at those next 3 slides. I'm not going to spend time in the lecture going over them. I'm just going to kind of recap, right? If we think about the pre-colonial era in Nigeria, right? Nigeria had a lot of influx or participation with the Middle East, which allowed for Islam. We did see some democratic ideals, and we saw really, really strong kinship or family-based ties in Nigeria. Then Nigeria region was colonized by Great Britain, okay, and a lot of that was ruled by an authoritarian type of manner. We saw a lot of ethnic politics. Different ethnic groups were provided more freedoms than others. Britain kind of broke them apart to kind of pit them against each other, because if they kept the Nigerian people weak, then they couldn't rise up against them, to be quite honest. We also see the infusion of Christianity at this point. So then we start to see this Islam in the north, Christianity in the south, that makes up much of what Nigeria is today, right? And then in 1960, Nigeria gained its independence. A federal system was established, right, as a way to deal with the multi-ethnic state of their country. We'll talk about that. They originally had a parliamentary system modeled after Great Britain. That didn't last very long, and they modified it, and they switched to a presidential system, which is more based on the United States. We also see the introduction here of a lot of oil playing a huge role, and then a lot of corruption surrounding that oil. Again, the next 3 slides go into a lot of detail on everything I just said. I passed that paper out in class on Thursday or yesterday. If you didn't get it, you can print it yourself, or you can grab one from me when you return on Monday. All right, with that, actually to today's topic, political culture, participation, electoral systems, and citizen organizations. So my big old head's going to keep getting in the way here. Okay, one thing that you need to remember, we need to look at is Nigeria's culture, right? So we look at it here, right, on this west coast of Africa. It is surrounded by several countries: Benin, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, which is right there. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Right, so they've got like some infusion here. We see that they've got, right, some ties to the Middle East. And then if you come around to the bottom of Nigeria, they've had more ties with Europe, just based on the connection between them. But again, huge ethnic diversity, very influential in what's happening in Nigeria. Again, just kind of looking at this in the different zones of Nigeria, most of these zones are controlled by different ethnic groups. Okay, we're going to get into this a little bit more. When we look at cleavages, remember, a cleavage is a divide among people. Typically, we are talking about economic or social cleavages. We don't normally use that word when we're talking about politics specifically. Okay, one thing I do want you to realize is these are coinciding cleavages, which means they align the ethnicity with their religion, with the geography, with the social class, which you'll see as we progress through today's lesson. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is ethnicity. There are tons and tons of ethnic groups, right, within Nigeria. It's estimated that they have more than 250 ethnic groups. However, 3 predominant ones make up the country. In the northern portion, you have the Hausa Fulani. It is officially 2, the Hausa and the Fulani. Purely Hausa makes up about 30%. Fulani is making up about 6 for a total of 36. But these 2 cultures have kind of blended in a lot of regards into one. So a lot of times you'll hear them called the Hausa Fulani rather than the Hausa and the Fulani. Okay, right. Those people live typically in the north, as we see, right? Those coinciding cleavages. They are predominantly Muslim, and they're a little bit more agriculturally based, subsistence-based farmers, those types of things. So that's really an important thing to note when we talk about that. Without a doubt, the Igbo and the Yoruba are about the same, about 15%. If we look down here, the Yoruba are on the southwest, and the Igbo are in the southeast. It's important to note, though, down here in the bottom is called the Niger Delta region in the Igbo territory, and that's where a lot of like the oil is, and that's caused quite a bit of conflict and issues within the Nigerian population. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that little map up at the top so that you can still see it. Again, when we talk about religion, it is coinciding. About 53.5% of Muslims, and you don't need all these percentages, I'm just telling you. You just need to know what the top ones are, right? Are Muslim, 99%, right, of the Hasa Fulani are Muslims. So pretty much all your Muslims, not all of them, but a large majority of them are living in those northern, more subsistence farming portions, right? Because of that, and this federal system to support the multi-ethnic nature of Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria has Sharia courts, and it does have Sharia law embedded because that's what the people want. Okay. Second major religion, right? Very, very close. There's 46.5%. Most of that is Protestant Christianity as opposed to Catholicism, but they do have about 10% of that is about Catholicism or Orthodoxy, right? Again, in that southern region of Nigeria, in the Yoruba and the Igbo populations, is where you're really seeing a large portion of those. I will tell you that your Igbo population, typically more Roman Catholic, your Yoruba population more Protestant, but really just know that the southern parts of Nigeria are more Christian based, and then you do have a small percentage of indigenous or other religions. Okay, I've already talked about it, but we've got it. Okay, with that, right, they've got the rural-urban divide. Typically, the South is more urbanized than the North is. In general, like we've seen with other countries, some things that you need to remember, though, is urban areas have greater access to pretty much anything: information, education, services, newspapers, media. Most of your protests are happening in urban-related areas in the South. Okay, about 53%, or a little over half of Nigeria's population lives in urban areas. Okay, and then obviously you've got this north-south split, which we have talked about quite a bit. Last one we have here is social class. The GD index is 0.351. That weird period is there. Remember, the closer to zero that you get, the more evenly distributed the wealth is within a country. This has actually gotten better. I think when I started teaching this class 10 years ago, it was at 43. So it's getting a little bit more equal, but they do still have quite a bit of struggle. Keep in mind, typically your southern, more industrial, more market, agricultural type groups are having much greater access to financial resources and are much wealthier. Not that they're wealthy than those that are living in the North.